We are live.
Thank you, Connor. This is a convening of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission, public meeting number 549. It is March 27th, 2025. It's approximately 10:01 a.m. I'm Jordan Maynard and I'm serving as chair. We're holding this meeting virtually, so we will do a roll call. Good morning, Commissioner O'Brien.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning, Commissioner Hill.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning, Commissioner Skinner.
Good morning.
And good morning, Commissioner Broder.
Good morning.
I'll point out the various shirts in the room. I know Commissioner Hill has his on for Game Sense, and I see Commissioner Broder has his on for the Red Sox. So should be a good season, Commissioner Broder.
Sure.
All right.
Be a
We're gonna
good day. It'll be a good day.
2018 energy, okay? 2018 energy. With that, we're going to turn over to Secretary Skinner. I believe we have some minutes.
We do. Before I put forward a motion, just a quick note on the January 17, 2023 set. I understand that the recording abruptly ended, and so the vote for adjournment of that meeting was not captured. So that's just an FYI.
How are we treating them?
We are moving forward per the advice of legal counsel.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Secretary Skinner.
I will also say that this probably gets more to your question. The legal division plans to add a footnote on the website where these minutes appear, explaining the difficulty with that particular meeting towards the end.
Should it also be within the body of the minutes themselves?
You can add that. I see Jenna is on screen, so I can turn to her to respond to that question.
Yeah, either
Just
way.
a vote to end the meeting, is that what it is? Or is it more substantive than that?
It was just the vote to,
Okay. I'm shocked we don't have more errors like that given the technology, so I'm glad. I will say for the public, we've not been continuously meeting since January 17th, 2023. We did actually adjourn that day, so.
We can go ahead and add a footnote within the document too. I think that makes eminent sense. Right, Jenna? Yes, do you agree? Perfect.
yep, we can do that as well.
Okay,
Sounds good.
here we go. Mr. Chair, I move that the commission approve the minutes from the January 17th, 2023 and the October 10th, 2024 meetings that are included in our packet, subject to any necessary corrections for typographical errors or other non-material matters.
So what were the dates? I'm sorry, what were the dates again?
January 17th, 2023, October 10th, 2024.
Okay.
We have a second from Commissioner Hill. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
Commissioner Broder.
Abstain.
And I vote yes, 4 and 1 abstention.
I further move that the commission approve the minutes from the November 7th, 2024 and the February 24th, 2025 meetings that are included in our packet, subject to any necessary corrections for typographical errors or other non-material matters.
So before I move to second, I did have a suggested edit on 11/7/24. Page 6 of the minutes would be page 25 in the packet. The last paragraph that starts off, Commissioner O'Brien, it discusses some of what I commented on. Beginning of the third line, it says spend down their accounts. I actually said draw down, not spend down. So if we could just substitute that word draw instead of spend at that point, I would then second.
Will do. Jenna, I know you're taking notes.
Yes, thank you.
All right, with that second, Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
Commissioner Broder.
Yes.
And I vote yes, 5-0. Thank you, Commissioner Skinner. Thank you, Jenna. Thank you to the rest of the legal team that prepares these. And with that, we are going to move to an administrative update with ED Serpa. Good morning, Dean.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. How are you? Yep, I do have two administrative items for today that I just wanted to go over quickly. The first is we have come to the point in the fiscal year where we check our estimated spend in certain budget line items to see if we need to make any adjustments. And I can see that in the annual commissioner industry travel line item. One of the individuals' planned schedule will cross the 20% allocation. There's a shortage of about $1,000. We did also do a check for any additional plans between now and the end of the fiscal year, which, as you know, is June 30th. And with that factored in, including this adjustment, the total line item would still end the year with about a $10,000 surplus. So if you were okay with that, I would make that adjustment for this fiscal year. Again, the line item has a positive balance. It's the apportionment that needs to be adjusted. And I'll also note that in the current budget building exercise that we're doing for fiscal 26, I have asked the team to adjust the overall line item since it hasn't been updated in the past few fiscal years. And I know we've seen an overall increase in average cost. So hopefully we won't run into this issue next fiscal year. So I'll do that just to make it work out for this fiscal year. Moving on, I guess there's no questions on that. Very simply on the second line item is that we are watching progress on House Bill 62 regarding the extension of the temporary provisions pertaining to the open meeting law and remote participation, which you all know is on the governor's desk. We're going to see what happens with that this week. The governor would need to take action on that by Sunday evening. And if she doesn't do that, it would impact our planned agenda setting meeting for next Wednesday, April 2nd. If that were the case, we would plan to have all 5 commissioners in person here at the headquarters. And we would also stream the content, of course. And if it's necessary on Wednesday, we can also discuss and consider how we'll want to conduct next Thursday's public meeting. But we're keeping an eye on that and we'll keep you updated for any developments. And those are my updates unless there's any questions.
Any questions? Well, thank you, ED Serpa, and thank you for planning ahead on the open meeting law conversation. And I know that we've been thinking about it and looking at what we have to do if it moves in that direction. So we appreciate it.
Sure.
All right. Thank you so much, Dean. With that, I believe our next matter is for legal. Good morning, Todd.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Yes, we have a couple of matters involving open litigation, as noted on the agenda, involving the FBT Everett Realty case and the Landmark American Insurance case. There are a couple of points that would be helpful for the Commission to weigh in on strategically, and we'd recommend doing that in executive session. Dave Mackey from Anderson and Krieger is here to brief the commissioners if you are so inclined.
So, commissioners, to do that, I have some executive session language I can read into the record. And if we move in to executive session, we can discuss it with Attorney Mackey. The commission anticipates it will meet in executive session in accordance with General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to FBT Everett Realty LLC versus the Massachusetts Gaming Commission and Massachusetts Gaming Commission versus Landmark American Insurance Company, as a discussion at an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the commission. The public session of the meeting will reconvene at the conclusion of this executive session. Would we like to move?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Broder.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Skinner, for the second. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
Commissioner Broder.
Yes.
And I vote yes. So to the public, we will re-enter public session after this conversation. All right, Connor, I think we can take that down. All right. We just finished a executive session with outside counsel, and we are now turning to the Investigations and Enforcement Bureau. Director Monahan, good morning.
Good morning. The IEB has a number of matters for you today, but we'll start with the first, which is a discussion regarding the handling of wagers related to sports wagering non-compliance events pursuant to 205 CMR 247.0311. I'll give a brief explanation and then I'm going to hand it over to Kathleen Kramer, our Chief Enforcement Counsel. So this relates to, as I just said, 205 CMR 247.0311. And in particular, that reg requires that when an operator offers an unauthorized event, the operator must then cancel and refund the wagers for that event. The commission asked for us to speak internally, and by that I mean the IEB, sports wagering, and the legal department regarding interpretation of that reg. And so after discussion and research as to the history of the reg, we are bringing this forward for a discussion with the commission about its interpretation of the regulation. So with that, I will turn it over to Kathleen.
Thanks, Caitlin. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Caitlin did most of the legwork for the introduction on this particular agenda item, but as Caitlin noted, this came up in a prior discussion when the IEB was presenting a recommendation for a civil administrative penalty on a sports wagering matter in January. Essentially, there was a request to just get some clarification regarding the requirements of operators when handling wagers for non-compliance events, and whether there were any sort of statutory requirements or regulatory requirements. So as Caitlin noted, the IEB worked with legal and our sports wagering division to go take a look at what's required in the regulations. This is a regulatory requirement. It's not a statutory requirement. And as Caitlin noted again, it's 247.03 subsection 11, which requires in matters of non-compliance that the operators immediately cancel and refund all of the sports wagers associated with those events. With respect to parlays, there's a little bit more of a nuance where they can just cancel the leg that was affected by the non-compliance and leave the authorized legs as they stand. As a result of that regulation, we went out and took a look at what the sports wagering operators are doing in practice through the assistance of Carrie and just from our review of non-compliance matters. And essentially how all of the operators are currently treating this particular regulation is canceling and refunding when it's a losing wager. So they'll cancel and refund the stake. A person bet $5, they give them back the $5. With respect to wagers that are settled and have won, the operators allow those wagers to stand. And what we've noticed on the IEB side in our non-compliance review is that often the operators don't learn of non-compliance until well after the non-compliance has occurred, either through an audit or through the sports wagering division learning that something maybe is being offered that shouldn't be. So in a lot of instances, those wagers have long past settled, sometimes in the upwards of months or even closer to a year. Really, this is just brought today for the commission's awareness and for discussion as to whether the commission is comfortable with the interpretation of the operators' interpretation of this particular regulation, and whether there's any requests or discussion. Certainly happy to answer questions. I know Carrie and Justin also helped us in reviewing this, so happy to open it up to the commission for any questions or discussion.
Thank you, CEC Kramer, and thank you, Director Monahan. Questions? Commissioner O'Brien.
Yeah, so thank you to the team for looking into this. I raised this in the 2x2 and I want to raise it for public conversation because while this is a reg, we do have a statutory requirement in 23N based on the definitions in other sections about certain what's an acceptable wager and a lawful wager and what isn't. So if the resolution pragmatically is we let the winnings, quote unquote, inure to the benefit of the patron, I don't have a problem necessarily with that outcome. What I have a problem with is how it's categorized, because it can't be a winning because it's an unlawful bet. So if they're letting that stand and reimbursing what was sort of the unlawful wager, that would seem to be in compliance as long as bookkeeping wise or category wise, however they're calling that, whether it's, you know, some sort of courtesy compensation, you know, whatever you're going to call it. But in my view, if they call it winnings, it's in violation of the statute and the definitions of sports wagering event, et cetera. So I just want to make sure that this interpretation does not run afoul of what are the statutory prohibitions on what's allowable.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Brien. Any other comments? Questions?
So can I ask, I did raise this in the 2x2. They said they were going to look into it. I'm just wondering if staff has any response to that.
Sure, we actually did meet and alert Derek. We spoke to Derek maybe last week, if I'm remembering correctly, and just after that 2x2, Commissioner O'Brien went and did some follow-up to make sure that the operators are accounting for wagers that come in this type of manner correctly. Derek did give us some information. I don't know. Oh, I see that he's going on. He seems to know that we're going to turn it to him. I'll maybe turn it to you, Derek, because you'll probably be able to maybe answer how they're supposed to be treating these types of matters. And I think there was going to be some follow-up maybe from Carrie's team on it.
Yes, thank you, Kathleen, Commissioner O'Brien. So what our guidance is, if the accounting period's still open, you make an adjustment now because the bet should have never happened, right? So you return it. If the accounting period is closed, and you can't take any winnings from it also either, right? So you can't count it as a write-off. So you have to make those adjustments. If the accounting period's closed, then they should do it as a footnote to their next financial submission and write those off. So take off the revenue, take off the winnings. It should be like it never happened.
Right. Okay. So in terms of, and you tell me, Derek, in terms of, are people getting, 1099s on winnings that then they do their costs in terms of paying taxes on the winnings?
So that
Is it
should be
treated differently than that?
So that should be adjusted as well for patrons, right?
Right.
So that should be like it never happened in the book, and that should be going into their personal account as well.
Okay.
Because that would be a refund back to them, right? So you'd see it as the money coming out and a lot. So it should be net neutral in all these transactions if they're doing them correctly. And that's where I said to Kathleen, if we need to sit down with an operator and walk through a few of these examples, we absolutely can. If the operators understand it based on that feedback, then it should be fine. But you are correct. It should be both on the patron side of the charts as well as on our tax side of the charts.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you for doing that.
That would mean there's not some liability to the patron for being enriched, I'm sure, but that's between the patron and the tax authorities, in my opinion. But I hear the accounting issue that Commissioner O'Brien's raising. Anything else, commissioners, on this matter? All right. I agree. Void ab initio, but practice is almost impossible to claw back winnings a year old. So thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner O'Brien. Thank you, Kathleen and Derek and Caitlin, for dealing with the issue. What's next?
So next we have 5 sports wagering related non-compliance matters, and Deandra is actually handling all 5 of these. Deandra is our enforcement counsel. So what I'd like to do is actually just send this agenda item over to her instead of coming back in and out for each of them, if that works for you, Chair. Great.
That works for me.
Thank you. Thanks, Deandra.
Great. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. This morning, as Caitlin mentioned, I have 5 non-compliance matters I will be presenting to you. All 5 matters involve violations of 205 CMR 247.011, 205 CMR 247.012I, and the Massachusetts Sports Wagering Catalog. All matters are related to offering wagering on the Adriatic Basketball Association, also known as the ABA Liga, which is an unapproved event. Earlier this year, on January 6th, one operator sent an inquiry to our sports wagering division asking whether offering wagering on the Adriatic Basketball League was permitted under the catalog. Our sports wagering division did some follow-up with the International Basketball Federation, also known as FIBA, to clarify the league's status and learn that the Adriatic Basketball Association is not and has never been recognized, sanctioned, or governed by FIBA. At this point, I have some specifics related to 5 operators, which are PSI, Caesars, BetMGM, Fanatics, and FanDuel, who offered wagering on the Adriatic Basketball Association, and I'll be seeking guidance for next steps. I can go through them all together at once, or we can sort of take them individually, whatever the commission's preference is.
Thank you, Councilor Franks. I have my fellow commissioners will humor me. I have just an initial question. How did this many operators think that this was okay. It leads me to automatically believe there was a communications breakdown somewhere.
Essentially, they're all very similar, but basically the Adriatic Basketball Association collaborates with the national basketball federations of the participating countries to ensure compliance with FIBA's rules and regulations. So while this league specifically isn't directly governed by FIBA, it operates within FIBA's sort of broader framework for international basketball competitions, and it follows FIBA's basketball rules, which is why 5 operators thought it was approved, because they all follow the same rules, sort of a thing. So
To follow up on the chair's question, we did have a couple operators who got it right. So curious as to how their interpretation was accurate and the others weren't.
yeah, it was essentially one operator noticed that all of the rest of them were offering it, so asked if they were allowed to offer it, and then the sports wagering division met with FIBA to ask if it was governed under FIBA, and they said no. So that's sort of how this all came to be.
Okay.
So one of the operators had a really good interpretation, and the others had a very
Right.
good interpretation.
Right. Yeah.
All right, well, commissioners, with that, anything else before we let Councilor Franks get into the specifics of each case? All right, Councilor Franks.
Okay. Just to clarify, would you like me to pause after each one so the commission can discuss what they'd like to do, or do you want me to just sort of go through all 5 and then we can?
The fact pattern's similar, the money's different. Commissioners, are we okay just holding to the end? We'll hold to the end.
Okay, great. So the first non-compliance incident involves Category 3 sports wagering operator Penn Sports Interactive doing business as ESPN Bet or PSI. PSI accepted wagers on the ABA Liga from September 18th, 2023 through January 6th, 2025. During this time frame, 4,795 wagers were accepted for a total stake of $311,908. The next non-compliance incident involves Category 3 sports wagering operator American Wagering Inc. doing business as Caesars Sportsbook. Caesars accepted wagers on the ABA Liga from March 11th, 2023 through January 22nd, 2025. During this time frame, 4,104 wagers were accepted for a total stake of $373,000. The next non-compliance incident involves temporary Category 3 sports wagering licensee BetMGM LLC. BetMGM accepted wagers on the ABA Liga from March 10th, 2023 through January 24th, 2025. During this time frame, 12,477 wagers were accepted for a total stake of $477,703. The next non-compliance incident involves temporary Category 3 sports wagering licensee FBG Enterprises OpCo LLC doing business as Fanatics Betting and Gaming. Fanatics accepted wagers on the ABA Liga from October 12th, 2023 through January 22nd, 2025. During this time frame, 9,680 wagers were accepted for a total stake of $641,842. I just want to highlight this one is a slight change from what was submitted in the original memorandum. And then the final non-compliance incident I have for you today involves temporary Category 3 sports wagering licensee Betfair Interactive LLC doing business as FanDuel. FanDuel accepted wagers on the ABA Liga from March 3rd, 2023 through January 6th, 2025. During this time frame, 657,850 wagers were accepted for a total stake of $4,397,957. At this point, again, we can happy to take any questions, and I'd ask the commission its preference for next steps. Just as a reminder, the options are to refer it back to the IEB, set it up for an adjudicatory hearing, or issue a civil administrative penalty under Chapter 23N, Section 16.
I have another question quickly. Based upon the first conversation we had, I'm assuming the money's been returned to the patrons or not recollected from the patrons.
Correct.
Okay. It's a lot of money.
Yeah,
A
a lot of money.
All right, commissioners, what are we thinking?
I have a clarifying question, Chair, for Deandra. What was the change to number 4 that you noted? The difference between what you recited and what was in the original memo?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Let me just pull that up for you.
Was it the dollar amount that's different? Just what aspect of it, I guess?
Yeah, it was, let's see. It was a slight dollar amount, and I'm just trying to pull up the original. It was a couple $100 off and a couple.
Oh, it was the dollar amount. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's simple enough. And then my other question is, which one, I mean, of the first and third options you laid out, is there an ability to, oh, well, I guess it would only be with respect to option 1. Referring back to the IEB, is there the ability to ratify whatever penalty that IEB may come up with? Right, so that would come before the commission and we could say yay or nay, and or impose a different penalty than what you've recommended. Yes, right.
Yes, if I could chime in, Commissioner Skinner, when if the IB were to recommend a civil administrative penalty, it would come back to the commission for the commission to approve the civil administrative penalty. The commission would not have to approve it. Should you choose not to approve it, it would get set up for an adjudicatory hearing from there.
Okay. Well, I'll get the conversation started. I think I'm okay with option 1, referring this back to IEB. That being said, I think that the facts are similar in each of these cases. I think it could easily be described as an honest mistake, but we'll reserve that judgment until the investigation is complete. I would not want to have, I don't think it's necessary, let me say that, to have separate adjudicatory hearings on these matters, even though there are large sums of money involved and the length of time that these wagers were open for betting, the market was open for wagers. That being said, I'm still comfortable with sending this back to IEB to make a recommendation to the commission.
Thank you, Commissioner Skinner. I saw Commissioner Broder, and then I saw Commissioner O'Brien's mics go off.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I essentially agree with Commissioner Skinner. I would like to see, and this might be a broader discussion for another time, it's not specifically related to a case or cases, but it seems like the facts here are well developed. I think this would be a great opportunity for IEB to essentially be empowered to, I don't know if this already happens, to essentially negotiate with the parties around a settlement that would then presumably take the form of an administrative penalty and potentially some other actions, and then essentially, to borrow a word from Commissioner Skinner, come to us for ratification. We obviously wouldn't be bound by it, but I think that would be a very healthy way to approach some of these cases where we are in a fairly good place in terms of the investigation.
Thank you, Commissioner Broder. Commissioner O'Brien.
Yeah, so option 1, as Commissioner Skinner said, I think is the most appropriate given their representation, that they all seem to have made the same error in kind. The confirmation that they've already returned the underlying unlawful bet. I would, somewhat similar, I think, to what Commissioner Broder was just implying, is the civil administrative penalty, correct me if I'm wrong, Kathleen or Deandra, doesn't have to be just money, right? It can be equitable remedies. And I would encourage IEB to do that in terms of either audit, compliance checking, something like that, because I don't think just paying, this is a whack to them financially, obviously, but the fact that all but one made this error, I think there should be some introspection and possibly connected to the administrative penalty in terms of conduct on their part, rather so we don't have sports wagering going in and having to audit compliance on this.
Commissioner Hill. Good to go. I will add, I agree. Commissioner Skinner, Commissioner Broder, Commissioner O'Brien. I will say that, just to pull the curtain back a little bit, it's really hard for a commissioner to overturn their investigations bureau anytime they make a recommendation. This commissioner will be very, very willing to do that if it's out of line with what I think should be done here. And I agree with Commissioner O'Brien. We have to remember that there are more tools in the toolbox than just finding someone, especially when it looks like a big boo-boo to me that was shared across platforms and operators. All right. Anything else, Councilor Franks?
That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The final item for the IAB today, it relates to the temporary Category 3 sports wagering operator requests for a temporary license. And I'm going to turn this over to Chief of the Licensing Division, Kara O'Brien.
Thank you, Caitlin. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. We have for you today the requests from the temporary Category 3 sports wagering operator licensees for their next temporary license. The recommendation from Executive Director Serpa appears in your packet starting on page 45. In short, this is the second step of the renewal of these licenses. As you know, the Commission granted leave to request the licenses on February 24th. Each licensee has submitted the requisite form as well as the $1 million fee. All requirements have been met and the Commission may now grant the renewed temporary licenses. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Kara, questions? Well, it looks like we're marking this up for a vote. Anybody? I think giving the licenses away is the fun part of the job. Anybody want to make that motion?
Thought Commissioner Hill was going to make a move, but he's not, so I will jump in. I
usually hog all of these, so I'm
well, that's why I was waiting. I was getting ready to second, but I will do the lead. I move that the Commission approve the temporary Category 3 sports wagering operator requests for temporary licenses pursuant to 205 CMR 219 and grant the renewed temporary licenses for the following operators as included in the Commissioner's packet and further discussed here today. 1, Bally's Interactive LLC, DBA Ballybet, Betfair Interactive LLC, DBA FanDuel, Bet MGM LLC, DBA Bet MGM, Crown Mass Gaming LLC, DBA DraftKings, and FBG Enterprises OpCo LLC, DBA Fanatics.
Thank you.
second.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
Commissioner Broder.
Yes.
And I vote yes. 5-0. We will continue with the regulated market in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts with that one. All right. Anything else for the IEB?
That's it for the IAB today. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. With that, we are going to turn it to item number 6. Commissioner Skinner, Edie Serpa, Derek Lennon, and Beniswa for an update.
And it should also be John Scully. Is John on the call?
Correct. This should be John taking the lead on this, and we are here to give an update on our diversity statistics, both vendor and internal for our employees. John, are you able to join us? Okay, so John just joined and he will be taking over now. Go ahead, John.
Sorry about that, guys. Was handling something. Benice was actually going to kick us off, and then I'll pop on, and then Benice will give us the strong finish yet again. So Benice, I'm going to pass it to you.
Yes, and we just want to take the opportunity to present the MGC diversity statistics today, and thank you for giving us this opportunity. The presentation provides an update on the Massachusetts Gaming Commission's progress in 2 key areas, the supplier or vendor diversity, and as well as the workforce diversity. Our last update to the commission was during the public meeting, which was held on December 14, 2023. Since then, we have continued monitoring our data. We have been accessing our benchmarks, and we have tried really hard to remain intentional in our efforts to promote equity, both within our organization and through our procurement practices. The commission has upheld a very strong commitment to diversity since its inception, guided by the procurement policies of the Operational Services Division, or as we know it, the OSD. That commitment was further reinforced in 2021 when the Supplier Diversity Office, as we know it, the SDO, became a standalone agency responsible for setting and tracking diversity benchmarks for all of the state agencies, which includes ours. So today's presentation, we'll begin it now. I will turn it over to Finance Manager John Scully, who will walk us through the FY25 supply diversity spend categories and performance.
All right, great. Thank you, Beniswa. All right, as Beniswa stated, the Massachusetts Gaming Commission has had a commitment to diversity since its inception. The MGC has annual state benchmarks determined for them by the Supplier Diversity Office, or commonly referred to as the SDO. In an effort to lead by example for its operators, the Commission strives to hit these benchmarks each year. The Supplier Diversity Office is a separate state entity for the Mass Gaming Commission, and its mission is to increase opportunities for certified businesses and small business through annual state agency benchmarks. As such, the SDO independently sets the benchmarks and does the spend tracking for the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. The total number of spend categories tracked annually is 6. These categories include small business enterprises, women-owned business enterprises, minority business-owned enterprises, veteran-owned business enterprises, LGBT-owned business enterprises, and disability-owned business enterprises. Due to the efforts of the Commission, its senior staff, and its division heads and managers, I am pleased to say that the MGC is within the top percentage of state entities or state agencies in meeting these spending goals. For FY25, with the exception of veteran-owned business spending, the Massachusetts Gaming Commission projects to meet or far exceed 5 out of 6 of the benchmarks that the Supplier Diversity Office has set for it. Beniswa is sharing the chart right now, and in this chart right here, if you look over on the left-hand columns, those are for FY24, and that's just a quick look back at where we were last year, and we hit 5 out of 6 of our targeted benchmarks that last year, and as stated, we project to hit 5 out of 6 again this year. Right now, we're still on track for minority business spends. We still have some spending yet to do, but we expect to hit that. Veteran spend is actually higher year over year, and we expect to double, and there'll also be indirect spend that'll be factored into this. This is all just direct spending. And the veteran spend will be possibly even triple what it was last year. We're still trying to hit our LGBT spend, but we project to hit that by the end of the year as well. Beniswa, can you go to the next slide?
Yeah. Good. Just give me a second. Doesn't want to move forward.
It's all right.
There we go.
All right. So the SDO tracks our spending through discretionary spends. And you can see that these are the percentages that we have to, these are the percentages for our discretionary spend. So the first one is for small businesses. It's 3.3% of our spending. The next one is for MBEs. It's 8%. The next one is for WBEs at 14%. The next one is for VBEs at 3%. And the final two are both at 0.3%. That's for disability business enterprises as well as LGBT business enterprises. And I think finally, the last slide will help you to understand our benchmarks a little more. So these percentages equate to pretty hefty spending that our different divisions work hard towards to hitting. For disability spending, we have to spend at least $23,000 for the year. LGBT also $23,000. MBE spending is roughly 613,000. Small business spending is roughly 253,000. The veteran business spending is roughly 230,000, and women business entity spending is almost 1.1 million. And with that, I'm going to pass this over to Beniswa to take a look at our workforce snapshot.
Yeah, thank you, John. So I will close with a snapshot of our internal workforce diversity. As of February 28, 2025, the Massachusetts Gaming Commission employed 136 staff members. Of that number, 132 employees, or approximately 97%, voluntarily disclosed their demographic information. It is important to note that while we did have 4 employees who chose not to self-identify, their ethnicity would not have changed the overall diversity statistics. In fact, their inclusion would have increased the percentage of non-diverse staff above the current 71.32%. But based on the available data that we have, we are pleased to report that we are currently at 25.73% of our workforce. Our workforce who identifies as racially or ethnically diverse, which meets our internal diversity goal of 25%. And I have provided a breakdown of what that demographic looks like. So for employees who identify as white, we are at 71.32%. For employees who identify as Black, we're at 6.62%. For employees who identify as Asian or AAPI, we're at 8.09%. For employees who identify as Hispanic or Latinx, we're at 3.68%. For employees who have chosen to identify as multi-ethnic, that's 2 or more races, that's 7.35%. And then the 4 that chose not to self-identify represents 2.94% of our employees. And we also have, while this is not an MGC goal, we do track our male versus female employees, and currently we're at 58.09% for male employees and 41.91% for female employees. So that's the end of our presentation. Thank you for allowing us the time to update you on the MGC diversity statistics, and we are open for any questions.
So if you don't mind taking that down so we can see each other, we appreciate that, running through that for us, Beniswa. Questions, commissioners? Commissioner Skinner.
I don't have a question. First, just a thank you to the team for pulling this data together. It's much appreciated. And that was done at my request, but I'm sure my fellow commissioners are grateful that we have all had the opportunity to see these numbers. One of the things that I remember discussing last time, and I don't know if it was back in December of 2023. I don't think it was, but certainly it's been a conversation that we've had along the way as we continue to prioritize and intentionalize diversity here, is the need for goals in the gender category, the women category, a goal in the veterans category, and really just looking to get some information as to the origin of the 25% goal in the minority category. I think, in fact, I know because I reviewed the meeting, we also talked about obtaining or drafting and implementing a revised self-disclosure form. So hoping that we can put that back on the table so that we can really get to the story behind these numbers. I know we have at least one veteran who is a dedicated public servant on behalf of the MGC. So I think we should be identifying in these classes of individuals so that we can make sure that we're holding our own feet to the fire as we hold our operators and as we expect them to maintain diversity in their workplace. We'll also say give an early congratulations to John Stelly and the procurement team, because it seems like you're going to be headed down the road of being recognized by SDO for maybe the third year in a row in terms of our diversity in procurement. So I'm on record. It's going to happen. And my congrats to you early. I think those were all my comments. But, you know, overall, it's a good picture. I think we can do better first by starting with those goals. So let's see what we can do to get those, to make that happen this time around.
Well,
Thank you.
Commissioner, I'll just jump in to say, absolutely, we've been internally talking about that, sharpening up our data collection tool and reporting. And as you know, we're going through a restructure in the department as it is, and I absolutely consider that a paramount responsibility and something we'd like to show progress on. So we'll make that a priority.
Commissioner Skinner, I have to tell you, I pulled up to see if you were in my 2x2. I don't think you were on this issue. Commissioner Broder was. I think Commissioner Broder and I said the exact same things. That's why I had to pull it up to see who was in what. We said we would like to capture that veterans, LGBTQ, and some other pieces of information going forward. So it's funny how, even though we can't talk about things as a group of five, how our brains kind of work in very similar directions. So thank you, ED Serpa, for acknowledging that. Anything else on this? And we appreciate your work on this, Commissioner Skinner. Thank you, Beniswa. Thank you, John. I call him Scully. So thank you, and to Dean and Derek. We appreciate it. All right. Commissioners, we're at item number 7, and for that, we're going to kick it over to Dr. Lightbound. Good morning, Dr. Lightbound.
Good morning. So Steve O'Toole has submitted his request for key operating personnel and racing officials for this season. I'm not sure if he's on. We got caught a little, we thought we were going to be a little later in the meeting, so I apologize for that.
Do you want us to hold on this topic until we can pull that together? We can do that.
Let's see. It's up to you. If you want to speak to Steve about the opening of the meet, we could postpone it till later on, or it's pretty standard. The folks have all been licensed with us before. Nobody new, so.
Commissioner Hill, how do you want to handle it?
I actually have no questions for Steve, so I think we could move forward with this. And as has already been stated, something that we've done, each year, and with the same folks in place, I think it's all right to move forward, which I would be more than happy to move if my fellow commissioners deem that to be the right move.
I'm okay in this instance. Moving forward, Commissioner Skinner. All right, we're all good.
So I'm sorry. I don't think Dr. Lightbound has given her spiel. I think that's important for the record.
Oh, we're going to do that. Or I assumed we were going to do that. Sorry, that I had that same assumption, Commissioner Skinner. So Dr. Lightbound, we'll let you go. And if something comes up and we need Steve, we'll stop. We'll stop you on that. But feel free to move forward, Dr. Lightbound.
Okay. So Steve O'Toole has submitted a list of key operating personnel and racing officials for the 2025 meet. And these are all people that have been licensed with us before and are known to the Division of Racing. They are under the process of getting their licenses for this year. Some already have them, and some are in the process of getting it. And of course, they also have to have their backgrounds completed by the state police. So my recommendation is that they be approved pending licensing by our licensing department and the completion of the state police background checks.
right. Any questions based upon our materials or anything that Dr. Lightbound just mentioned? All right, Commissioner Hill, I think we might be in that spot now.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I move that the commission approve the racing officials and key operating personnel of Plainridge Park Casino as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
Commissioner Broder,
Yes,
and I vote yes, 5-0. All right, thank you, Dr. Lightbound. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Moving along, we're going to turn it over to the Division Chief of Sports Wagering, Carrie Teresi. Good morning, Carrie.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. For these 6 sets of House rules, I'm going to turn it over to Compliance and Operations Manager Stefan.
Thanks, Carrie. Good morning, Commissioners. We have quite a few House rule revisions to get to today. We'll start on page 51 of your packet with Bally's Interactive. Bally's is seeking to add an additional market to their platform to offer wagers on cross-sport events. Our division had actually requested the language here in your memo be added prior to offering these types of wagers. The language is identical to what we've asked of other operators as well who have this market available on their platform. And to give an example on a potential market, we can look back at the most recent Super Bowl. A possible market could be Saquon Barkley +2 total touchdowns and LeBron James to record a double-double for a specified date. These types of markets are typically only offered around large events such as the Super Bowl or other national championship games. And that is the only revision for Bally's today. I do see we have a few representatives from Bally's joining the meeting if you have any specific questions for them. However, as this language was requested by our division, we fully recommend the approval of this revision today. Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. Do we have any questions, commissioners, based upon this cross-sport wager change?
No.
No, is this new or has this been going on?
This has been going on for other operators. This will be new to Bally's platform. Other operators have had this approved in their House rules since launch, and others in the last 2 years since we have launched.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Skinner.
I move that the commission approve the updates to Bally's House rules as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
Commissioner Broder.
yes,
And I vote yes, 5-0.
All right, up next is BetMGM. They have identified 3 sports in need of revisions. First up is baseball, where BetMGM is adding an additional market for MLB division finishing position. With this market, a customer can wager on the exact finishing order in a division, and BetMGM has laid out the specific rules for this market as well. Moving down to cricket. For top wicket taker, top bowler, they've added a rule: if 2 or more bowlers have taken the same number of wickets, the bowler who has conceded the fewest runs will be declared the winner. And to help answer any questions you may have on cricket, a bowler is similar to a pitcher in baseball, and a wicket is similar to a strike. So for a wicket, there are 3 sticks called stumps stuck in the ground with 2 smaller sticks called bails balanced on them. And they're like a target for the fielding team and can be hit with the ball to try and get the batter out. So again, relating this to baseball, this market could be similar to a market of which pitcher will record the most strikes. BetMGM has also identified a change for most sixes market in cricket. A 6 is when the batter hits the ball over the boundary without the ball touching the ground, similar to a home run in baseball. Essentially, this revision is a clearer rule for the customer clarification if a match ends prior to its scheduled conclusion. And then lastly, for cricket, this additional market is settled based on the number of runs added to the team total for the specified delivery. And a delivery refers to a single instance of a bowler or a pitcher bowling the ball towards the batsman with the aim of getting the batsman out or scoring runs. Clearly no expert on cricket, but looking at these rules and comparing them against other operators' rules for cricket, we have no issues with the proposed revisions today. And then lastly, for BetMGM, a change for tennis, specifically for total games markets. Overall, this revision lays out more precise language, ensuring the customer understands when bets will be void or settled. It also has stricter settlement criteria, where a set must now be complete before bets are settled in the case of a player's retirement. And that concludes the changes for BetMGM. I see we are joined by BetMGM Trading Compliance Analyst Zach Kraus to help answer any questions from their end. However, our division has completed a full review, and we would recommend the approval of these changes today. Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. Commissioners, questions on these changes on baseball, cricket, tennis? And thank you for the cricket tutorial.
Slowly learning more on cricket.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Hill.
I move that the commission approve the updates to BetMGM's house rules as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
Commissioner Broder.
Yes.
And I vote yes, 5-0.
All right, and Chair, I hope it's okay for the next item. I'd like to go out of order on the agenda. The MGM Springfield House rule revisions beginning on page 67 are identical to those just approved for BetMGM. So if you don't mind, I'd like to skip to item 8A6 on page 67 for the MGM Springfield House rule. So as I just mentioned, the MGM Springfield House rule revisions are identical to those just approved for BetMGM. No other changes are being requested. They have the same baseball revision for MLB division finishing position, the same revisions to their cricket markets, and the same revision for the total games markets in tennis. BetMGM Trade Compliance Analyst Zach Kraus is still here if needed. However, our division would fully recommend the approval of these revisions as well for MGM Springfield. Sure.
Sounds good. Commissioners, are we going to extrapolate this to the sports book, Springfield?
I move that the commission approve the updates to MGM Springfield's house rules as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
Commissioner Broder.
Yes.
And I vote yes, 5-0.
All right, moving along. We'll continue with the posted agenda back to page 55 with a house rule revision from Encore Boston Harbor. EBH has identified a single sport in need of revision, and that is for their baseball and softball section. EBH is requesting a single line be added to the end of this market stating if the game is decided by the mercy rule, all bets are valid and will be resulted according to official match results. Prior to this rule, totals and run lines would likely have been voided if the game would not have reached the full 7 or 9 innings needed for game completion. This final sentence adds more clarity as well as consumer protection, aligning result settlement with how the official leagues determine outcomes. And with that, our division would fully recommend the approval of a single revision for Encore Boston Harbor's sportsbook today. Sure.
I support anything that supports the patrons. So thank you for that. Commissioners, any questions for Andrew on this one?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the commission approve the updates to Encore Boston Harbor's house rules as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Thank you, Commissioner Skinner.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
And Commissioner Broder.
Yes.
And I vote yes, 5-0.
All right, 2 more. Next up is Fanatics. Fanatics has identified 7 sports in need of specific revisions. Starting on page 59 with the, I guess, blue line in your packet. For football, Fanatics has added clarification for the scheduling week of NFL and collegiate games, providing better clarification for the customer on when a game is canceled and not rescheduled. They've also added an additional clarifying rule to anytime touchdown score markets on how those will settle if there is no touchdown score. Moving down to baseball at the top of page 60, and similar to what we just saw for EBH, Fanatics has also added settlement clarification for how the mercy rule will be settled. The stipulation is now that a minimum of 7 innings must be played. For hockey, they've removed specific language for winning margin markets, where now overtime and shootouts may count towards the settlement of this market. Likewise, with the first and next goal, this market is also now inclusive of overtime. For the newly added double chance market, this lets you bet on 2 outcomes for a single period. For example, team A or draw wins if either happens by the end of that period. And only regulation time for that period counts. Overtime and shootouts are excluded from this market. Moving to soccer, they've added 3 clarifying rules to their soccer daily specials. And these rules just give further clarification if a match is postponed or if a specific player does not play in that match. A quick revision for boxing. This is just a cleanup in their house rules, as technical draw is available as a selection for boxing matches. So technical draw may be chosen as a selection for method of victory, which results in better clarification for the customer and fewer wagers that would need to be void due to not having a specific selection available. And then lastly, for rugby, they've added the general rule that all markets excluding moneyline markets do not include overtime unless it is specifically stated. And that concludes our review of Fanatics House Rule revisions. I see we are joined by Fanatics Senior Manager of New Markets, Dan Mulhall, to help answer any questions from their end. However, after an extensive review of these sports and even a comparison of these rules against other operators' house rules, our division would recommend the approval of these changes today. Chair.
All right, commissioners, these were a little more involved on these. Any questions for Andrew? I'm seeing no across the board. I did have a question about the football, the 2-player market rules. Does that just bring it in line with other operators?
That's the one we looked at for the player to score touchdowns and the prop wagers. Those are fairly similar to the 3 or 4 operators that we compared this rule against.
All right, that was the one outstanding question I had. Also, I noticed your pup in the background there, Andrew. So I see you're joined by a coworker. All right, commissioners. How do we want to move forward on this one?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Hill.
move that the commission approve the updates to Fanatics House rules as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner, and here's another coworker.
See why I've been muting myself.
I'm assuming that's Mango, Commissioner O'Brien. Commissioner Hill.
I think Mango just said aye for me. So aye.
Commissioner Skinner
Aye.
and Commissioner Broder.
Yes.
And I vote yes. 5-0 with some commentary from Mango too. So
All right, last one, beginning on page 63 of your packet. FanDuel has identified 4 sports in need of revision. The first sport, top of page 64 in your packet, is baseball. The additional language here only relates to new markets that would now be available for the home run derby. These new markets include most home runs hit on consecutive pitches, number of pitches thrown before first home run, and player to hit the longest home run. All new markets also have their appropriate rules for customer clarification as well. And a rule that is unchanged, but it's worth noting here, that all home run derby wagers will be resulted according to the figures provided by the MLB. Moving on to basketball, new market here as well. Double up refers to a team having scored twice as many points as their opponent in a specified period. A few new player markets include player to score a certain amount of points in each quarter, both teams to score in the next minute, and number of 3-pointers made in the next 3 minutes. Just some unique prop wagers here for basketball. Moving down to hockey, FanDuel has identified a rule change where if a goal is not scored in the 5-minute overtime period in NCAA hockey, the game is declared a tie. If tie is an option, wagers will be settled accordingly, and if tie is not an option, all wagers will be void as that selection was not made available to their customers. And then lastly, for tennis, they've updated a market to state that wagers will be settled according to official data feed providers. In the case of a participant having to retire from the match prior to conclusion, all markets or selections will be void unless it has already been unequivocally determined. And that wraps up the quick revisions from FanDuel. I see we're joined again by FanDuel Trading Compliance Manager Chris Black to help answer any questions from their end. However, our division conducted a thorough review of these revisions and would recommend the approval of these changes today. Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. I guess I can start with a question. Discuss a little bit, if you can, or Chris can, about the venue changes. How does that come into play on a wager? I noticed that under the basketball conversation.
Chris, are you able to?
Yeah, sorry. Was that a question for me, Commissioner Manning?
It's for whoever wants to answer it, Chris.
Sure. Is that in reference to the NCAA?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out practically how this comes about.
Yeah, so we had an instance, I think, that came up. This is more related, I think, to the NFL when there was a location change. You guys remember early in the year with the playoff game, where it was an extreme scenario where the home location had to change venues. And so this was just when we were looking at our rules for this quarter, the basketball trading team wanted to make sure we had something like that to account for that situation.
Yeah, that was the extreme snow is what you're talking about in the NFL situation. I'm just like Commissioner Broder has his Red Sox on. I'm the NCAA and Commissioner Hill too, and others. We pay attention to those college basketball things, right? So, okay.
So, Commissioner or Chair, for this one, this is just FanDuel covering their bases for basketball, as this was already included in their football section. Just trying to cover the bases for all their sports, should there be venue changes.
Okay, I've got it. Any other questions, Commissioner Broder?
Yeah, real quick. This one's for you, Chris. As we get into a lot more of the in-game bets, I'm just curious. What is it that got number of 3-pointers made in the next 3 minutes? What is the the actuarial basis for that of the fan demand? Why 3 minutes? Why not one? I mean, that's just curious because the potential for expansion is kind of endless here, right?
Sure. Yeah. So these markets do tend to be particularly popular with customers. Just really the fact that they're looking for those kind of quick in-game wagers to keep the action kind of going during the game. So that 3 minutes was sort of tested out as like a quarter of a quarter, I guess. It just is an incremental time. So we will continue kind of testing with those time periods, I believe, throughout. And we could kind of tweak those to just what customers are basically telling us they're interested in.
It's a lot. It doesn't give me a great feeling, but that's I will vote to support it, but I'm mindful that this is, it is potentially unlimited. I know you come back to us for everything, right? And that is as it should be. But I appreciate the info.
Yeah, of course.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
This is FanDuel, right, Andrew?
Correct. Yes.
Yep. So, Mr. Chairman, I move that the commission approve the updates to FanDuel's house rules as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Do we have a second?
Sorry, struggled to get my mic on. Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
and Commissioner Broder.
Yes.
All right, and I vote yes, 5-0.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, commissioners, and good luck to your Red Sox this year.
Thank you. All right. Are we sticking with you, Carrie?
Yes, we have one more item for you today, and that is a request for a brief waiver extension related to 205 CMR 248.044. As you know, 248.044 requires sports wagering operators to use identity authentication questions, or KVA, at the time of account establishment, or if they want to use alternate methods, those methods must be approved by the commission. We've been seeing a few of these operators come through sort of for the same reason. BetMGM and Bally's do both use KVA questions, but they're part of a waterfall approach, which means that not all patrons would go through the KVA portion, and as such, they don't meet the current regulatory requirement. These processes for both operators were previously approved by the Sports Wagering Division in error rather than coming to the commission for approval, and we're now just cleaning up this error in process. There is currently a waiver in place until May 1st, and we're just seeking an additional 1 month so that we can bring these to the commission in May for approval.
Thank you. Chief Teresi, questions? No questions for me either. I see no across the board. We have a motion for Carrie, our team.
Mr. Chairman, I move that pursuant to 205 CMR 202.032, the commission issue a temporary waiver to Bally's and BetMGM through June 1st, 2025 from the requirements in 205 CMR 248.044 as discussed here today, as granting the waiver meets the requirements specified in 205 CMR 102.034 and is consistent with the purposes of General Law, Chapter 23N.
Second.
Thank you. And this is Bally's only, right?
Bally's and BetMGM.
Correct.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure. I heard it read once, but not the second time. All right. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
Commissioner Broder.
Yes.
And I vote yes, 5-0. All right. Anything else, Chief Teresi, for your team?
That's all from sports wagering today. Thank you.
All right. Commissioners, do we want to go ahead and move on to item number 9? For that, we're going to turn it over to legal. Councilor Grossman.
Yes, thank you. We have a series of regulations for your consideration here today. You'll be hearing from a variety of members of our team. Justin, Ying, Judy, and Autumn will kick things off with Justin and a review of Section 256. Justin.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. As you can see in the packet today, we have some changes being asked to be implemented into 205 CMR 256. There are 2 changes, the first of which is a small scope change in 205 CMR 256.02. This just corrects basically broadens the scope of a reference in the first provision of that subsection to reference the entire sports wagering advertising section in 205 CMR 256 as opposed to a subsection. The more substantive change is the one we met about and discussed during 2x2s approximately a month ago. This language seeks to add a disclaimer requirement to sports wagering operators advertising so that when advertising is made by, let's say, a social media representative or an influencer of some kind, that this will have a disclaimer that will indicate that that individual is being paid for making that post, so that to hopefully alleviate any confusion with respect to the advertisements themselves. So this disclaimer language tracks with similar requirements that are done in the United Kingdom, as well as similar requirements put out by the Federal Trade Commission. This is our first step in reevaluating 205 CMR 256. We also plan to, in conjunction with the Sports Wagering Division, issue a guidance document that will better inform the industry as to how we are interpreting the advisor encourage language that's in that regulation, but that will be before you at a future meeting. So that is to come. So today is just these two changes to the regulation to start the promulgation process. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them now.
Commissioners, questions, comments? Commissioner O'Brien, Commissioner Skinner, and Commissioner O'Brien, then Commissioner Skinner, or vice versa, whoever wants to go first.
I just have a comment, not a question. So Commissioner Skinner, I don't know if you had a question.
It's really just a question as to when this particular the advising and encouraging patrons language took effect. So I think your footnote says that you've been getting a lot of questions. And is there something that serves as the impetus for the questions that you've been receiving?
I think it wasn't necessarily that we've been receiving a lot of questions. I think in our own review of this document, Commissioner Skinner, we've realized that it's a difficult line to draw. It's not a bright line test, and different people may interpret advise or encourage slightly differently. So it struck us that in order to better equip our team, we need to provide some standards that we can use, as well as that we could share with the industry, so that everyone is operating from the same playbook, so that we can, if in the event that we feel that there is someone that stepped over the line, we can make it clear that we know where the line is and everybody does know where the line is, so we can better enforce this as well. So I think that the advisor encourage language, to my understanding, has been there since the beginning. So this is just us as we're evolving and interpreting and looking at our regs as we are working with them. We saw that this one we can better work with it to make it more specific and more useful for the commission.
Okay, better late than never then, huh? Thank you, Justin.
Yep.
Yeah, so just my comment was more along the lines of some of what you just said, Justin, which is, my understanding is that framework was there in the beginning, and I'm very supportive of the team continuing to go back, particularly the advertising and the marketing. I think it's one of the most impactful areas the commission can have in terms of responsible gaming, in terms of, being a leader in this space. The fact that, marketing, advertising, third-party relationships change constantly. I'm supportive of this. I'm also supportive of the team continuing to look to make sure that our language is broad enough to capture the changes without having to keep coming back, and amend it and make it too specific so that it becomes outdated too fast. So I think this is good. And I would encourage the team to continue to do that.
Yeah, that point is very well taken, Commissioner O'Brien, and that's why we were looking at maybe not changing the advisor encourage, but putting out a advisory document like our regulatory friends in New Jersey often do, to help the industry understand and provide some of that guidance without changing the reg. So it does provide us with some flexibility.
Right.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Brien, for those comments, and Commissioner Skinner. Commissioner Skinner, I see your mic's back off.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, adding this language to the advertisement, that's the intent, right? It would be in addition to what is already required on for disclosures on the advertisement.
That is accurate. This would be a disclosure on the advertisement itself, and I would leave the specifics to sort of Carrie's team and sports wagering, but it would have to indicate that the individual make note of the relationship that they have with the operator and that they're being paid to make the post. Similar to, like, if you imagine if you're on Twitter or X, or it says like a promoted post, so that when an influencer is being paid to advertise for whatever Coke or something, that it has an indication that this is a promoted post. Something along those lines is what we're envisioning. But this will sort of precipitate the discussion, and then we'll work out the specifics, I imagine, with the operators themselves.
Yeah, no, I agree with this approach. I think I just and I remember the 2x2s that you set up for us. I'm going to be very interested too in the public comment. I know if we move this forward, it's the preliminary process, and so whatever public comments, as I know you would typically do, we receive. Please just share those with commissioners.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I expect that we will receive comments, and this is just the start of the discussion, and we'll bring all that back to you when we are coming back for you for final promulgation.
Thank you. Commissioners, Commissioner Broder, Commissioner Hill. Commissioner O'Brien, are you ready for a motion, or are you?
I was ready to move, but I didn't know if you wanted to say something.
Oh, I just want to say, I'm asked a lot as a commissioner, and I'll share this in a public forum. What's the role for the feds in regulation? And oftentimes the first thing I go to is, we really should all get together on advertisement, given the federal nature of it, given the fact that broadcast waves go across states. So I'll just use this as an opportunity to plug the fact that, we're piecing this together. You just heard Justin say something about New Jersey, for example, but, this is really a place where the feds could be helpful, and some federal movement could be helpful on this matter, versus some of the other places where I think we're doing just fine here in Massachusetts on our own. So just plugging that. Commissioner Broder, I saw your mic come up.
You prompted, I think, the next part. I think you're absolutely right. There are some things historically that cross state bound, but the reason why this work in our state and in our sister jurisdictions is so important is because it does seem like the federal government is likely to turn away from this type of regulatory attention to certain activities. So in many respects, this work is more important than ever. And the more we can do, particularly across jurisdictions, to set a de facto national standard, will make a huge difference for folks across the country.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I'm in agreement. All right.
Yeah. So before I move, just to echo what's been said is, all five of us and Executive Director Serpa and Director Vanderlyn were all over at the State House yesterday and talking about what people have been doing in the Massachusetts area in terms of, responsible gaming in general and also marketing and advertising. And so we have had that conversation, as the chair said, Commissioner Broder's from the get-go. And there've been some animated conversations in this body of five in terms of what we can push and advice from counsel in terms of First Amendment restrictions, et cetera. And as you've said, just echoing, I'm sure what we all think, which is involvement at the federal level, akin to some of the involvement sort of at the tobacco level for guidance and clarity would be helpful, I think, to all of us. But, as Justin said, and as we said, we're doing what we can at the state level, mindful of those possible restrictions. So just to echo what you said and to give a shout out to what we did yesterday in terms of the efforts that we and others are making in this area. And with that, I'm happy to move unless anyone else wants to make a comment.
I just want to say that I think we're the most progressive in protecting players' jurisdiction in the country. And it's based upon a lot of the people sitting on the screen right now. So thank you, Commissioner O'Brien.
With that, I would move that the commission approve the small business impact statement and the draft as amended of 205 CMR 256 that's included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today. And further, that staff be authorized to take the steps necessary to file the required documentation with the Secretary of the Commonwealth to begin the regulation promulgation process.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
Commissioner Broder.
Yes.
And I vote yes. 5-0, and we look forward to hearing those comments, Justin.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. You're sticking with me for the next one here as well. This is 205 CMR 23801. You may recall this from our several substantive discussions on the letter of credit regulation that was before you a couple months ago. Ultimately, the commission had made the decision to add a definition of sports wagering liability into the definitions section that precedes the letter of credit regulation, which is laid out at 238.12. So this is up before you for final promulgation of that definition that we added for sports wagering liability. We did not receive any comments on this from the public, so it is just back before you on final promulgation vote. But if you have any questions, I'm here to answer those.
Thank you, Justin. Any questions on 238.01?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Hill.
I move that the commission approve the amended small business impact statement in the draft of 205 CMR 238.01 included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today, and further that staff be authorized to take the steps necessary to file the required documentation with the Secretary of the Commonwealth to finalize the regulation promulgation process.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
Commissioner Broder.
Yes.
And I vote yes, 5-0.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. I'll now turn it over to Ying to bring the next regulation before you.
Afternoon. The next regulation for your review is 205 CMR 243.02. This regulation supplements the process that was previously approved for 205 CMR 143.07 pertaining to the use of kiosks. And as you may recall, you initially reviewed this regulation during the January 23rd, 2025 public meeting and voted to begin the promulgation process. And as part of that, we held a public hearing on March 25th, 2025, and we did not receive any comments at that hearing. The promulgation process is now complete, and we're seeking a formal vote to adopt the final version of the proposed regulation. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioners, questions?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the commission approve the amended small business impact statement and the draft of 205 CMR 243.02 included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today. And further, the staff be authorized to take the steps necessary to file the required documentation with the Secretary of the Commonwealth to finalize the regulation promulgation process.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
And Commissioner Broder.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Commissioners.
Thank you so much. All right, I think we're going to talk about game rules.
Good morning, commissioners. How are you? I apologize, I was having a little bit of camera trouble. Starting on page 88 of your packets, I have a short cover memo for you today, as well as some updates to the Spanish 21 gaming rules. During their review, Gaming Agents Division Chief Kane and his team have found a few areas of the Spanish 21 rules that could benefit from some updates. These are mostly just clarifying labels being added to section 6E, 5F, and 5G of the rules. I am joined by Casino Regulatory Manager Luis Lozano over at EBH. If you have any more technical questions about Spanish 21 or the game of blackjack itself, but ultimately these rules are kind of low in terms of significance and are just mainly added to increase clarity for players and dealers of the game. So with that, I can kind of pause for any sort of questions that you have or turn it over to Luis for those technical questions.
Thank you, Judy. Good to see you, Luis. How are
Good
you?
seeing you as well, Chair and Commissioners.
Commissioners, do we have any questions for Judy or Luis? I want to thank you for walking us through the rule changes. Always enlightening.
Pleasure. Thanks for making yourself available for 2x2s. All right.
I don't think I'll be any better at the game. but I enjoyed learning.
Okay, I can move next to Pontoon, or I can hold for commissioner vote. It's ultimately up to you, Chair and Commissioners.
I'm okay with her moving forward. I'm getting yeses.
Okay, fantastic. Moving next on to page 102 of the Commissioner's packet. We have a short memo for you and then the accompanying rules for Pontoon 21. Just as a bit of background reference, this game was a new game put into effect at MGM Springfield in late 2022, and then came back before the Commissioners again for finalization in February of 2023. The rules were finalized and placed online, but unfortunately, a little bit of a technical glitch happened and some of the rules were cut off in section 6E. So we've brought those rules back for you today, put the full complete pay table back in section E. And then also while the rules were open, Chief Kane and his team have also made some more clarifications and adjustments. The most significant being in section 13, we've added in some player rules to discuss wagering on different boxes at the tables and removed a reference to a specific gaming licensee. Under 205 CMR 14702, when the commission first approved these rules, they were eligible to be played at either gaming establishment in the Commonwealth. And so we figured it was kind of impractical to have a reference to only one gaming licensee. So we've cut that reference out and then gone ahead and had more general game playing rules within that section. But again, these are very, very general changes and updates to the rules, not necessarily changing any sort of substantive style of how the game will be played at MGM Springfield. So short little spiel for you today.
We appreciate that, and we understand technical glitches, given that January 17, 2023's meeting still ongoing until today.
Happens to the best of us.
That said, commissioners, questions for Judy or Lewis?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the commission approve the amended rules of the game of Spanish 21 and Pontoon 21 as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner,
Aye.
Commissioner Broder,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Thank you to
Thank
Judy.
you so much. And I will make
Lewis.
sure that these get updated to the website in perfect condition this time around.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your diligence. as
Very
always.
much. Thanks, Lewis.
Thank you all.
All right, moving along, it looks like we're going to turn it back over to legal.
Hi, I'm here to bring forward some proposed amendments to 205 CMR 101. It's the regulation that governs adjudicatory proceedings in front of the commission. And there's a number of proposed changes, so I'm just going to go through on my screen. The first change you'll notice is going to be on page 4. You might not have noticed it actually. It's a relatively small change. It's just correcting a internal citation so that it refers to the previous section instead of the next section coming in. And then the rest of all the substantive changes are on page 7 of the regulation. The changes to 205 CMR 101.03 subsection 5 are predominantly clarification. It would clarify that it's the clerk that sets the briefing schedule for appeals that are before the commission. This is consistent with our current practices. And it also added some clarifying language that not all appeals brought to the commission have adjudicatory hearings for them. Sometimes, or most of the time, they are reviewed solely based on the papers and then a decision is written out. And so I just clarified that it is the review by the commission and not necessarily a hearing that will be occurring in those matters. And that's consistent with section 9 of the regulation, which says that the Commission may request oral arguments, but it's not required. And then there are changes, some slight changes to sections 101.037 and 8, which would allow for further flexibility to address certain procedural motions to the commission and procedural requests to the commission. Those requests are very limited in scope. It's only for requests from a party if they need to submit a longer brief or if they want additional time to file a brief. And currently the regulations allow the commission, or rather the chair, to appoint a single commissioner to issue decisions on those requests. And we just added or by the clerk, as the chair could delegate the clerk as well, so that as the clerk is the one who sets the briefing schedule, the clerk would also be able to address any changes to the briefs or the schedule. And there was some language cleanup as well, where we turned chairman into chair just to be more consistent throughout the regulations. And I'm happy to take any questions on those changes.
Thank you, Counselor. I have just a first question. Reading 23K and 23N and so forth. Can the chair designate a clerk that's not a commissioner? Is that the legal team's interpretation?
I think for something, I'm sorry, Autumn, I'm happy to jump in on this one.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes, I think the answer is yes, you can designate, they're not conducting the hearing. It's just a procedural part of the process. So I think that's perfectly acceptable in this situation.
And I'll just note that I do agree with changing chairman to chair. Commissioner O'Brien?
So I'm really not in favor of doing the designation. Honestly, even though it's in the regs in terms of, taking it to one particular commissioner as opposed to the body of 5. And I said this to Autumn yesterday, and I think it's, my assessment of Autumn's judgment, but it does seem to me this should lay with the body of 5. I've had experience since being in here for 7 years where we've had a couple of these that get, nuance isn't even the right word, maybe a little complicated. It doesn't seem to be overly cumbersome, and I don't really think we should be designating that function to the clerk. I think that it should stay. There is the may, in terms of the chair may pick one person if he or she so chooses. I'm not going to ask that language be changed, but I'm not in favor of changing this outside the commissioners making these decisions. I don't mind cleaning up typos and the things like that needed to get typed up, but I think I've said this before. I'm just reiterating the position that I've consistently taken on this.
Yeah, I mean, the statute's pretty clear that, the chair designates that function. I've went back and reread it a few times. That's why I asked that question at the beginning.
And that says may, and in my 7 years here, I can't think of a circumstance where it's not been, put out to the 5 of us in terms of those things. And we talked about setting briefing schedules in general to keep the cadence so everybody understands. So the clerk can schedule accordingly in terms of the cadence, but not in terms of requests to go beyond what we say is sort of the default substance and timing.
Yeah, and I asked legal question some time ago because I was asked about this when I became chair. How often does this pop up? And I don't know the frequency. Commissioner Skinner?
Yeah, so I don't disagree with Commissioner O'Brien's position. As I read this and as I interpret it, the authority only goes so far as a single commissioner or clerk grants those procedural motions. But where a denial is contemplated, the way I see this is that it comes back to the commission, right? So this language to me does not delegate the authority to deny any of those procedural requests. And if that's the case, I'm okay with that being delegated to a single commissioner or the clerk. I think we should be consistent in the way we are deciding these motions, even procedural motions. So I would prefer to have these matters come before the 5 of us. But if we're talking about just granting the motions, I'm okay with delegating, having that authority be delegated with the rationale that for a denial, there's more of a consequence to that versus the granting of a motion. No one's going to be disappointed if you grant the motion. Not no one, but you'll have less disagreement, I guess, or less of an impact or consequence for the individual who's seeking the granting of that motion. But where you have a denial, there are at times 5 different inclinations, and I want us to make sure that we are treating these cases that come before us consistently and fairly. And I think it's important that we all have an opportunity to understand exactly what's being requested, because if this does come to just a single commissioner, or denials go to just a single commissioner or the clerk, there's no real opportunity for us to understand what happened in a particular situation. So I would be in favor of keeping things the way they are, having the 5 of us review these. But again, if we're just talking about allowing a single commissioner or the clerk to grant these procedural requests, I'm okay with that. But when it comes to denying, I think it should come to all of us.
I'm going to make a suggestion here. And by the way, we're talking about historical practice, Commissioner Skinner, right? When we say come to the 5 of us, because the statute's pretty clear. Can we work on this a little bit and bring it back? I do want to say that I want to keep the gender neutral language around the word chair. That I agree with. But let's maybe Autumn, me and you and Todd sit down too and talk about this pretty in depth. And then maybe clean up the language a little bit. But I do think, in my position as chair and protecting the position for the next chair who comes and the chair thereafter, we should be pretty clear on how this is done, and then it can be brought back to the commission to look at. I think that's probably the best for today. Commissioner Skinner?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, but I think that any commissioner that wants that same discussion to happen between the legal division should have that opportunity, because I'm not sure of how this is before us today or why. So that's information that I just don't have. It's just yes, it was talked about in the agenda setting, and I should have asked for more information at that time. But seeing this for the very first time, not understanding any of the background, not understanding any of the rationale for it, it would be helpful if we get 2x2s on this, just to kind of understand the need for the change a little bit more.
Yeah, and Commissioner Skinner, I want to be clear on this one. I was just as kind of surprised to see it at the agenda setting, so I didn't know if another commissioner pushed the issue, and that's why I was specific to that situation too. So I'm just as interested as you are.
My note to self is speak up next time.
Yeah. Anybody that wants to learn more should be able to learn more.
Mr. Chairman, my sense, I like the way the discussion is going. My sense when I first saw this was an effort to create an efficiency in the process around certain decisions that were, for the most part, ministerial, but you never know. So I was very much inclined to support that, but certainly willing to hear more, and look forward to some of the information some of my colleagues have talked about.
Yeah, and to add into Commissioner Skinner's comment about getting feedback, from all of us. I mean, like I said, I've been here 7 years. I have seen circumstances where I was very glad it was in front of the 5 of us. They were complicated. You also have the circumstance, Commissioner Skinner, where maybe the request is not assented to by both parties. So the idea that maybe the clerk is going to grant it when it's not assented to by the other side, that's another circumstance I'm not so sure should not be coming to us. So the chair has never availed him or herself of the designate to just want to make the decision historically. That would seem to me to be the first step toward efficiency. So I'm not so sure we need to go far afield and keep carving out, unless it's only if it's assented to and only if it's for this and can it go to the clerk. So I agree with you, Chair, that I think this needs more conversation.
Yeah, I can
But
think
I don't
about
have a
and-
problem with the chair or the ministerial changes, obviously.
Yeah, I can also come up with things in my mind of like, in the middle of the night, there has to be a decision and the 5 of us aren't available in the middle of the night, right? Where we would want to do that, but that would have to be language written in here, right? And thought about. And, I'm thinking of all these scenarios that, I think it's good that Autumn brought this to us. I know Autumn's doing a bulk of the work when it comes to these matters, and we appreciate that. But yeah, let's kind of work on this all together with fidelity to the statute, but understanding some efficiencies, as Commissioner Broder said, can be had here. And let's bring it back if that's okay to Team Legal.
I'm not so sure it's all Autumn's idea, right? So I don't want to place that all on her shoulders, but I think she's doing a great job. I don't want my position in any way to suggest otherwise.
Me too. I agree.
All right, I'd be happy to have the discussions with the do 2x2s and then come up with some language I could bring back at a future date. Thank you.
Thank you, Autumn. Commissioner Hill's giving a thumbs up, a real one, or a virtual one. All right. With that, legal, Councilor Grossman, do you have anything else?
Nope, I think that covered it.
All right. So, do we have any commissioner updates today? I'll just piggyback on Commissioner O'Brien's conversation about enjoyed being at the State House yesterday, but that's about it. Any other business?
Hats off to no break.
Had an audio problem there, Mr. Chairman. My apologies. So the chair in his, I'll say in his wisdom, has offered me the opportunity to participate in the internal working group around decisions around the Community Mitigation Fund. As I think the world knows, I, in a former role, was the mayor of the city of Melrose. Melrose is one of the communities that applies to receive these funds. I've been out of that position for over a year at that point, but out of an abundance of, I guess, caution, I have filed a disclosure with my appointing authority, saying essentially what I just said. And as you all know, our enhanced code of ethics requires me to make that statement publicly at a public meeting of the commission. And so I have.
And I appreciate Commissioner Broder for stepping up. I had been in that role prior to becoming chair, and thought he would be a great addition, having been a former both rep and mayor from the municipal level. So we appreciate you doing that. All right, Commissioner Skinner.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill. Commissioner Skinner.
Commissioner Hill, I beat you to it. Aye.
Commissioner Broder.
Yes.
I'm flipping today for some reason.
And I vote yes. And for those of us here in the office, I think we're going to gather for a little lunch. So to celebrate the Red Sox. All right. Have a good day.